Hi everyone, I'm Sleepless Scientist, and tonight we're going to take a very quiet step into the prehistoric skies. Imagine it, the world is warmer, wetter, and the air smells like rain and rot. The trees are taller than apartment buildings, the rivers slow and muddy, and the sky. It's not yours. Not yet. Up there, something ancient stirs a shadow with wings wider than a city bus. It doesn't flap. It doesn't scream. It just glides, quiet as a whisper. And you're on the menu. You probably won't survive this. I'd love to know where in the world you're listening from and what time it is for you. Let me know in the comments below. I'm always curious where these quiet little science stories are drifting to and if this video helped you while you were there. Now relax, take a deep breath, and join me gently on this evening's journey. The moment you open your eyes, you're not in your bed anymore. You're crouching in the middle of a wide open clearing. The grass tickles your legs. Your breath catches. Something shifts in the sky, not a bird, not a cloud. It's bigger. Much, much bigger. A silhouette slices across the sun like a giant kite stitched from ancient skin. No sound. Not even wind. Just that terrifying shape drifting. You duck instinctively. But it doesn't matter. The thing is too far up to notice you. Or maybe it already has. Meet Quetzalcoatlus northropi, a name that sounds like someone sneezed while naming a spaceship. It's the largest known flying animal to have ever lived. Wingspan about 10-11 meters. That's as wide as a small airplane. Weight somewhere around 200-250 kilograms, which is lighter than you'd expect for something that could probably carry you off like a rag doll. You shuffle slowly through the scrub and feel the ground vibrate just slightly. It's not footsteps. It's air displacement. The wake of something coasting just overhead. You glance up again. The thing isn't flapping. Just adjusting its wings, bat-like membranes stretched across absurdly long fingers. There's something haunting about it. Not monstrous exactly, just too real to be a myth and too strange to be from your time. If you're wondering how something that massive got off the ground, well, that's a story for later. For now, just try to imagine the quiet. No jet engines, no rotor blades. Just one of nature's earliest pilots riding thermals with an elegance that feels both sacred and deeply unfair. You watch as it dips its wing, catching a warm updraft. It doesn't even twitch its head, but you know it saw something miles away. Something moving. Maybe a juvenile sauropod separated from the herd. Maybe a clutch of eggs buried in sand. Maybe you crouch lower. Every instinct tells you to stay still. But your curiosity itches. So you do what any deeply unwise but narratively convenient person would do. You follow. You duck beneath ferns taller than mailboxes, slide across a log crusted with blue fungus. Fun fact, some fungi in the Cretaceous may have glowed faintly at night, like nature's weirdest fairy lights, and press on. You're chasing the king of the sky. Or queen. Scientists still debate the gender roles in pterosaur populations. Were the biggest ones males, or did females grow larger for nesting dominance? The fossils don't gossip. As you crest a muddy slope, you see it again, only this time it's landed. Now the scale truly hits you. Its neck is absurdly long, stiff, but flexible like a bendy drinking straw made of nightmares. Its beak, almost 2 meters, rests just above the ground, and its folded wings give it the appearance of a crouched dragon mixed with a giraffe who's given up on life. It takes a step, a weird one. You expected claws or stomps. Instead, the thing moves like a marionette, knees-high elbows pointed, each step eerily dainty for something with a wingspan longer than a Tyrannosaurus rex. The beak dips, stabs, and lifts. You barely catch it, but the tip emerges holding something that was moving a moment ago. Maybe a lizard, maybe a bird thing. Doesn't matter now. It vanishes in one gulp. No chewing, no drama, just gone. Quetzalcoatlus hunted alone, or maybe in pairs. Scientists still debate their social structure. Some think they lived in colonies like seabirds. Others think they were solitary sky tyrants, each defending a massive hunting range the size of a city. You take one hesitant step forward. The beast turns its head slowly like an owl, like it's more curious than threatened. Its eye glints in the sun. Big, round, black as tar, and disconcertingly intelligent. Then, with a shiver of muscle and tendon, it launches. You thought it would need a running start. Nope. 4 limbs slam the ground in sequence almost like a catapult. It vaults upward in one graceful leap and is airborne before your brain even finishes shouting, "Nope." The wind from its wings slams into your face like a truck made of feathers. You stumble back, blinking. It's already 20 meters up circling, searching, always searching. So, how did these giant flying dinosaurs, technically not dinosaurs but close cousins, hunt in many, many ways? Some swooped, some strutted, some scavenged, some stalked. And you're about to follow them all. Welcome to the most dangerous airspace in Earth's history. And yes, it's only getting weirder from here. You're still staring up at the sky mouth open like you've just seen the future, or a bus fall from heaven. The Quetzalcoatlus has disappeared behind the clouds, swallowed by altitude, leaving nothing behind but awe, and a faint sense that gravity is more of a suggestion than a rule around here. You shuffle onward, stepping around a steaming patch of mud when something clicks in your brain. How in the fossilized world did a creature that size even fly? It's a fair question. This isn't some dainty sparrow or lightweight bat. This thing was the size of a giraffe, with the flying ambition of a Red Bull athlete. Let's look at the wings. They weren't just flappy slabs of skin like a bat. No. These wings were architectural marvels, long triangular sheets of membrane stretching from an absurdly elongated fourth finger down to the ankle or even the thigh. Think less flappy bird and more biological hang glider designed by a drunk origami master. You find yourself beside a cliff edge now. And by find I mean you've somehow walked there in your daze because the view is both horrifying and exhilarating. Wind rushes up from the drop like a reverse waterfall, warm and forceful. You can almost feel how these beasts used it. And then you see it bones. Fossilized wing bones embedded in the rock like ancient scaffolding. You run your fingers along one of them. It's thinner than you expect, paper-thin walls reinforced with internal struts like the inside of a bird bone, but dialed up to 11. Hollow, yes, but strong. Strong enough to support a wingspan longer than a bowling lane. And it wasn't just the bones doing the heavy lifting. The wing membranes weren't floppy. They were packed with muscle fibers and blood vessels. Basically, these wings were alive. They could tense and flex to change shape in flight, tightening like sails during a turn or slackening for a gentle landing. Imagine if your skin doubled as a built-in parachute. Gross, but effective. Modern birds flap constantly, but flapping is exhausting. And at a certain size, flapping just doesn't scale well. It's like trying to paddle a kayak with an oar made of spaghetti. At some point, it becomes more efficient to ride the wind than fight it. That's where pterosaurs had the edge. You crouch beside a sketch in the dirt, maybe drawn by a scientist, who fell asleep here 100 million years ago. It's a silhouette of a pterosaur's launch position, all fours on the ground, wings folded, legs coiled like springs. They didn't leap from cliffs like Hollywood loves to show. They vaulted themselves upward, using all 4 limbs in a single burst. It's called quadrupedal launch, and it's one of the coolest takeoff methods in the animal kingdom if you're into biomechanics and mild panic. Fun odd fact, modern vampire bats actually launch similarly. Yup, little Dracula bats hopping on all fours like biological pogo sticks. The past is weird, and the present isn't much better. Now here's where scientists start squabbling over coffee. Could something as massive as Quetzalcoatlus really fly like this? Some argue it was too heavy, that it could only glide short distances. Others say it was a master of the skies covering hundreds of kilometers a day. The truth? Well, it's still flapping in the wind. What we do know is that their bones were a miracle of evolution. Lightweight, but reinforced. Their muscles concentrated in the chest and shoulders, much like birds, with an enormous sternum acting as a foundation for the flight engine. But that beak, that enormous elongated head on a spindly neck, that seems like a liability, doesn't it? Yet somehow they made it work. The head was balanced with a long neck and a lightweight build. And even though it looks like it should snap off in a strong breeze, it didn't. That's evolution for you. No OSHA regulations, just vibes and survival. You pick up a small stone and toss it into the wind, imagining what it would be like to ride those currents. To be hundreds of meters above ground, soaring without a sound. No plane engines, no seatbelts. Just bones, wings, and instinct. Now imagine doing that while hunting. The sky is not just a highway, it's a hunting ground. And wings are weapons. Not for slashing or stabbing, but for controlling perspective. From up there, you're a god. You can see everything. Movement, shadows, mist, panic. You lean back against the cliff wall, the wind combing through your hair like a giant's sigh. The pterosaurs didn't just fly, they owned flight. And their bodies, they were living compromises. Big enough to dominate, light enough to float. Fragile in the wrong ways, invincible in others. The next time you're on a plane, squished between strangers and wondering why turbulence exists, just remember some creatures solved flight without seats, snacks, or even feathers. They solved it with hollow bones, monster hands, and aerodynamic skin. And somewhere out in the thick, hazy sky of the Cretaceous, one of them just saw you. Better keep moving. You're jogging now. Slowly. Not because something's chasing you yet, but because the terrain has changed. The cliff is behind you, and the forest has given way to open plains, the kind of endless nothing that makes you question whether the earth even curves. You wipe sweat from your brow. The sky is overcast now. No dramatic sunset, just a pale dome overhead like the inside of a hollow egg. And then you see it again. High up, gliding, effortless. A dark sliver moving in slow arcs, like it's sketching something invisible across the sky. This one's not flapping either. You squint, waiting, watching. Still no movement in the wings. No strokes. No thrust. Just drift. See, that's the secret. Giant pterosaurs didn't flap much. Not because they were lazy, although let's admit who wouldn't be, but because physics wouldn't allow it. Flapping those gigantic wings would cost them more energy than they could reasonably get back. So they flew smarter, not harder. You glance around for something to climb. A boulder works. From the top, the land stretches wide and low, a good place to catch thermals. Thermals, yes. These invisible elevators of warm air rising from sun-baked earth. If you were a prehistoric weather app, they'd be your best friend. And to a Quetzalcoatlus or an Aramborgiania, they were gold. The way it works is almost magical. The sun hits the ground, warming some spots more than others. That warm air rises. And if you're lucky and big, you catch one and spiral up into the heavens like a lazy tornado with a purpose. You spot your pterosaur doing just that now. It leans slightly, curves around, and ascends without flapping even once, like a leaf caught in an upward breeze. Except this leaf has a 3-meter skull and can probably eat a goat in one bite. You lie back on the rock and imagine being one of them. Your bones are hollow but strong, laced with struts. Your arms are wings. Your legs tucked, your neck outstretched, and your body is one giant sail. All you need is one warm draft and you're airborne. You could travel for miles scanning the ground below for food. You don't even need to move much, just tilt, adjust, coast. Like riding a bike downhill forever. Scientists still debate exactly how far these creatures could glide. Some estimates suggest over 10,000 kilometers a year, possibly migrating across continents. Others think they were more like short-hop predators, leapfrog flyers moving from thermal to thermal from coast to coast. The truth is hidden in the bones, and those bones don't always spill their secrets easily. Now you stretch your arms out wide. Not helpful, but you do it anyway. It feels right. You imagine the wind catching under your skin, lifting you skyward. It's almost real. Until a bug crawls up your leg and ruins the moment. You swat it away and sit up. Funny thing about all these gliders, they weren't birds. Not even close. They evolved flight in their own weird way. 3 times life has cracked the code to powered flight birds, bats, and pterosaurs. The pterosaurs got there first. They were the pioneers, the Wright brothers of the Mesozoic. And they did it with no feathers at all. Well, maybe. This is where it gets fuzzy. Literally. Some fossils show tiny hair-like structures covering parts of their body. Not true fur, and definitely not feathers, but something in between. Scientists call them pycnofibers, great word, terrible spelling. These might have helped regulate temperature, helped with airflow, or maybe just made them look fuzzy and adorable, until they opened their beaks and devoured a small dinosaur. Fun, weird detour, one fossil site preserved a possible impression of wing membrane texture. Guess what? It wasn't smooth. It had layers, fibers, tension lines. It looked like the sail of a windsurfing rig or the underwing of a high-performance glider. You peer up again. Still gliding. Still perfect. Like a kite you can't reel in. Why does this matter? Because flight, especially sustained flight at this size, is a terrifyingly narrow dance with physics. Too much weight and you fall. Too little lift and you stall. Every angle, every structure, every choice in the anatomy of these creatures was a compromise made over millions of years. An evolutionary negotiation with gravity that somehow worked. You hear something. A rustle in the tall grass. You freeze. Another one, you duck instinctively. But it's not a predator. Just a rust-colored lizard about the size of a shoebox, chewing on a beetle like it owes him money. You both look at each other. Both freeze. Then both decide simultaneously, nope, and scurry in opposite directions. You laugh quietly. The absurdity of this whole situation is setting in. You're on the ancient plains playing hide-and-seek with ghosts. Ghosts with wings. You make your way toward a ridge where the trees start again. There's shelter there. And from the higher ground, maybe you can watch another launch. But as you walk, you think again about that floating creature above. How it just hung there. Majestic. Silent. It hunted with height. With patience. It didn't flap. It planned. It waited. And when the moment was right, it'd drop. Hard. The trees ahead offer shade, but not comfort. You slip between 2 tall cycads and step into the hush of an ancient forest. It's cooler here, the air thick with plant breath, ferns, moss, and something that smells suspiciously like wet socks. The ground squishes under your feet. It's not mud. It's a mess of fallen leaves and 1,000 years of mulch, each step like walking on a sponge made of time. You pause at a clearing, small, quiet, and ringed with logs. But in the center, poking out like a rib from the earth, is a bone. No, not a bone. A fossil. But it looks fresh, like it just stepped out of the ground to say hello. You kneel beside it and run your fingers over the surface. It's light. You blink. That can't be right. But it is. You've just met one of the strangest facts about pterosaurs. Their bones were so hollow and delicate that many of them crushed flat under the weight of fossilization. It's a miracle we've found any at all. These bones, thin as eggshells in places, weren't weak. They were engineered. The inside of a pterosaur bone was filled with struts and crossbeams like the interior of a suspension bridge. Architects call this kind of structure a trabecular lattice. Nature calls it, let's make something ridiculously strong and feather-light at the same time. You flip the bone gently. There's a clear lattice pattern inside, almost like coral, but dry. And then it hits you, this thing once flew, on bones filled with air. Imagine carrying your own skeleton around, if it was built like scaffolding and filled with air sacs. Every gram saved mattered. These creatures couldn't afford unnecessary bulk, not if they were going to get off the ground. You hear a crack, your own foot snapping a twig. You jolt, startled. Not because of the sound, but because you're imagining what would happen if that pterosaur from earlier had seen you right now. You'd be gulped up like a popcorn shrimp. So why didn't their bones just snap every time they landed? Good question. Turns out their limbs weren't just hollow, they were flexible. Their joints could absorb impact like spring-loaded hinges. Think of them less like airplane wings and more like the landing gear of a lunar module crossed with a cat. That's how they could land on uneven terrain or absorb the shock of launch without snapping like a breadstick. Scientists still debate whether they were graceful landers or awkward crashers. Some say they could slow down with precision, gently placing themselves down like a leaf. Others think they kind of just belly flopped onto solid ground and hoped their knees were up for it. The truth is probably somewhere in the middle. They adapted for what worked. And what worked was get up fast, stay up long, land when you must, and pray the landing zone isn't a swamp full of something with teeth. You spot another fossil nearby. This one is different, rounder. You pick it up and realize it's not bone. It's fossilized poop. Yes, congratulations. You found coprolite ancient feces. You sigh and put it down gently, wondering what its original owner ate to make a rock that smells faintly like sulfur and pride. Odd fact, coprolites are actually scientific gold. They tell us what these creatures ate, how they digested, even whether they chewed or swallowed things whole. Spoiler, pterosaurs weren't chewers. They were vacuum cleaners with wings. The less chewing, the better. You stand and stretch. The trees above whisper in the breeze, and somewhere in the distance, a sharp crack cuts through the quiet. You freeze. That sound wasn't made by anything small. Something is out there, and it's big. You duck under a fern and inch toward a ridge. At the top, you part the leaves and look out. Below, in a shallow valley, a pterosaur has landed again. Not the same one as before. This one is darker with a shorter neck and a beak shaped like a butcher's knife. You notice something new. It's walking, not stumbling, not waddling, striding, with two legs moving forward and the folded wings pressed tight against its sides. It moves like a giant heron, methodical and terrifyingly silent. You weren't expecting this. You always imagined flying creatures to be clumsy on land, like penguins or turkeys trying to dance. But this one, it looks confident. Like it's used to walking down Cretaceous runways, head held high, judgmental gaze scanning the buffet. So now the pieces start clicking. The bones weren't just light. They were versatile. The joints weren't just mobile, they were engineered for two worlds, air and land. These weren't just flying machines. They were all-terrain predators. You remember those weird elbow shapes you saw in drawings, the way their limbs bent backward, how the wrist was actually halfway down the wing. Turns out that design let them fold their wings without damaging them, tuck them in neatly, and walk on all fours like a nightmarish giraffe-gremlin hybrid. You inch back from the ridge and let the leaves close around you. That pterosaur down there, it isn't flapping, it isn't screeching, it's just walking, scanning, waiting, and you realize something important. The sky isn't the only place they hunted. They walked when they had to. They stalked when it worked better. And when the wind wasn't right and the thermals were weak, they didn't care. Because whether in the air or on foot, they were still in control. You crouch a little lower on the ridge, careful not to snap another twig, because the thing below you is starting to feel a little too aware. Its head swivels slowly, the long beak slicing through the air like a pointer. It tilts an earless skull toward a clump of bushes, as if listening, then creeps forward with legs that are way too bird-like for comfort. The pterosaur stops, suddenly lifts one foot like a heron preparing to stab a frog, and then snap. Its beak plunges downward like a spring-loaded trap. You wince. There's a tiny squeal, muffled and brief. Then chewing sounds, oh wait, no. No chewing, just gulp. You catch a glimpse of the victim, something small and twitchy. Possibly a juvenile dinosaur. Maybe a mammal. Hard to say because it's already halfway down the throat tube of this ancient sky demon. So here we are, giant flying reptiles with 10-meter wingspans hunting prey the size of house cats. Doesn't that feel a bit unbalanced? Shouldn't they be tackling bigger prey? Turns out no. Not if you're playing the calorie game. Let's say you're a giant flying predator. You've got to maintain a ridiculous weight-to-lift ratio, eat enough to keep your muscles from cannibalizing themselves, and actually fly between hunting grounds. You want meals that are small, quick, and frequent. Big prey means big risks. You could get injured, miss, or worse, eat something that fights back. So you settle for what we'd call fun-sized snacks. Turtles, hatchlings, fish, carrion. Whatever doesn't scream too loud or run too fast. Scientists still debate the full diet of creatures like Quetzalcoatlus and Hatzegopteryx. Some fossils suggest they were generalists eating whatever they could find. Others argue for specialization. But one thing is clear, they were not above hunting baby dinosaurs. Let that sink in. You glance at a nearby clearing. The ground is torn up, claw marks gouged into the soft earth. You realize this might have been a nesting site not for pterosaurs, but some small theropods. Maybe Trudon, maybe Alvarezsaurus. Cute little things, with babies. You scan the sky. Nothing. Just low clouds, and a feeling like you're not alone. Back to the pterosaur below, it finishes its snack and stretches its wings, the tips rustling against tall grass. The muscles under that leathery membrane ripple, and for a moment, you can see just how much tension lives inside that body. Every movement is coiled potential, but it doesn't fly. Instead, it walks on. There's something eerie about watching a flying animal choose not to fly. Like seeing a helicopter decide to crawl through a field. You creep down the other side of the ridge. As you move through the brush, your mind starts painting a picture. Imagine a morning mist clinging to a riverbank, a mother dinosaur nudging her eggs. In the distance, a shadow drifts down, landing in near silence. The mother looks up too late. A flash of beak, a burst of wing, one less egg, one more breakfast. That was probably how it went. Not dramatic aerial strikes, not cinematic swoops, just quiet precision, open beak, close beak, repeat. Of course, not all pterosaurs were so sneaky. Some likely did attack from above, fast and brutal. Dive bombers with toothless maws. The problem is, direct fossil evidence of hunting behavior is rare. You don't often find a fossil with the caption, "This one was definitely eaten mid-scream." But we can piece it together from bone damage, fossilized stomach contents, and footprint trails. A pterosaur landing, a sudden disturbance, a series of smaller prints ending abruptly. You can do the math. You remember a weird story once scientists found a fossilized fish with a pterosaur bone stuck in its throat. Yes, the fish tried to eat the pterosaur, and it choked to death. Nature is hilarious and mean. You press on toward a marshy patch. The air thickens with the scent of algae and dragonfly wings. And just there, beside a fallen log, you see it a nest. Empty now, but recent. Cracked shells, claw marks in the dirt. Something raided it, and it wasn't for eggshells. You kneel and pick up a shard. It's thin, lightweight, probably from a small dinosaur, so why didn't the parents defend it? Maybe they did. But what are you going to do against a beak that's almost the length of your body? Even adult dinosaurs would hesitate. These flying hunters didn't have to overpower their prey. They only had to be faster, sneakier, and able to get in and out before backup arrived. Think of them like prehistoric hitmen with airdrop abilities. They didn't roar. They whispered. Odd detail, some pterosaur species may have had throat pouches like pelicans. Picture that for a second. A flying reptile with a built-in grocery bag. Grab a lizard, toss it in the sack, keep flying. It's both efficient and horrifying. You hear a screech now, high, sharp, and descending. You duck. A shadow races across the marsh. Another pterosaur, much smaller. Wings tight. It crashes into the water, sends ripples out in all directions, and rises again with something wriggling in its beak. You can't help but laugh. It's kind of adorable, if you forget the teeth. But your moment of levity is brief, because you look up again. And you realize the big one is back. It's circling above, and now it knows where the fish are. You hold your breath as the sky seems to fold itself in half. The big one, Quetzalcoatlus, or maybe one of its equally terrifying cousins, tilts a massive wing downward. The entire underside is a patchwork of sun-worn membrane scars, and possibly, was that a claw halfway up the wing? Yes. Yes, it was. Some pterosaurs had vestigial claws on the leading edge of their wings, a leftover from their evolution out of four-legged ground dwellers. Evolution doesn't delete it, repurposes, sometimes in really weird ways. You press yourself into the marsh grass, eyes up. There's no roar, no flap, just the steady approach of a living glider. It's locked into a spiral, now descending in widening circles, its long beak casting a wobbly shadow across the reeds. It sees the fish, the ones flitting near the surface like tiny silver comets. But it also sees you. For a horrifying second, it tilts its skull just slightly, one eye now angled in your direction. Oh, you think. Great. That's when you remember something from a random documentary. Pterosaurs didn't just fly well, they saw well. Their eyes were enormous relative to skull-size forward-facing for depth perception. And some scientists believe they were better than modern birds of prey. That's hawk-tier, maybe even drone-tier vision. Imagine being able to spot a mouse from the height of a skyscraper. Now make that mouse a bug, and make yourself a 10-meter death glider with steak knife feet. You're not food. You're irrelevant. But it sees you anyway. It flaps once, Not because it has to, but because it can. The downbeat is slow, like someone pushing against water, but the effect is immediate. The angle shifts, the speed doubles, and it banks hard toward the shoreline. You follow slowly, quietly, knees soaked from marsh water socks, now fully prehistoric. As you round a mossy log, you watch it descend, not into a dive, but into a landing so smooth it might as well be a ballet. It tiptoes. Yes, tiptoes. Imagine an animal with the wingspan of a private jet, delicately placing itself on the shore like it's afraid to wake the sand. First 2 hind feet, then the wing hands, then crouch. Perfect 4-point landing. Like it rehearsed this, scientists still debate the exact takeoff and landing mechanics. Some believe they glided to landings, others think they could control the angle and velocity with such finesse that they could land standing up like giant nightmarish storks. Judging by what you just saw, it's the second one. It stands there now scanning. The fish are jumping stupid and oblivious. You wonder, how does it catch them without claws or teeth? Then you notice the beak. That long, tapering nightmare of a beak isn't just a spear, it's a tuning fork. Every vibration from the water hits it like sonar. Combined with that sharp vision, it's got a targeting system that would make fighter pilots jealous. Suddenly, snap, the beak plunges in. It doesn't skewer, it scoops. The fish is flipped mid-air and swallowed before gravity even remembers to pull it down. You blink. Did it even chew? Of course not. Chewing's for amateurs. Pterosaurs are full-send gulpers. The throat stretches like a slimy tube sock. Goodbye, fish. Hello, protein. Odd fact, some pterosaurs had tiny projections, sort of like tooth bumps in their mouths, that helped grip slippery prey. Not actual teeth, just textured ridges, like a biological sushi mat. The big one moves again, this time slowly. It steps along the shoreline, beak swaying left to right like a pendulum of doom, not in a rush. Why would it be? Everything it needs is in reach. You can't stop staring at the legs. They're long, bird-like. The knees bend wrong, well wrong to you. To it, they bend exactly as intended. Backward, spring-loaded, efficient. You consider asking the obvious question out loud to no one: why does something that flies so well walk so much? The answer's right in front of you. Sometimes it's just easier. Flight is energy-intensive. Takeoff is costly. So unless they had to fly, escaping danger, changing location, migrating, they didn't. They walked. Efficient, conservative, logical. You shuffle back under cover and observe from a safer distance now. The big one dips again. Another fish. Then it stops. A smaller pterosaur has landed nearby. Not the same species, maybe a tapajara. Colorful crest, shorter wings, more parrot, less bomber jet. It stands upright, clearly more nervous. The two stare at each other. You brace for violence, but no. The big one lifts its wings slightly, an aggressive shrug, and the little one backs off. No fight, no drama. Dominance isn't always about combat. Sometimes it's just wingspan. Scientists still debate the social structures of pterosaurs. Did they hunt alone? Did they tolerate each other at feeding sites? Or were there hierarchies, sky monarchs, and low-flying peasants? Nobody knows for sure. But based on what you're watching, there's definitely a pecking order. You crouch lower and take a deep breath, the smell of wet moss and rotting ferns filling your lungs. This moment is weirdly peaceful, a flying apex predator calmly fishing like a retiree with nowhere to be. But don't be fooled. The stillness is temporary, because when the fish run out, they'll move inland, and they're not picky eaters. The fish are gone, just like that. A splash here, a shimmer there, and then silence. Even the tapajara, that flashy little crested creature, has taken off its wings, slicing through the thick air with a frantic rhythm that screams, "Nope, I'm done." But the big one, it stays. You watch as it lifts its head, slowly scanning. Not panicked, not desperate, just shifting gears. Time for Plan B. You duck behind a tall cycad and peer out, heart thudding. The pterosaur's body turns inland. The wings fold tighter. It lifts one foot, steps into the reeds, and begins its stroll up the muddy bank. And here's where things get personal. Because suddenly you're thinking like it. You see the terrain as a hunting map, a field of possibilities. Every patch of grass, every burrow, every bush might contain something, anything that moves. And if it moves, it can be eaten. It tiptoes past a log eyes, scanning the ground like a crime scene investigator. Beak, low neck stretched forward. You follow from a distance. Soft steps, watchful eyes. It pauses beside a fallen tree. Then you see it. A twitch, a flick of movement near the roots. A baby dinosaur, no bigger than a house cat. Feathery, awkward brown as dirt, probably just hatched a week ago. You freeze. It freezes. Everyone knows what's coming. The pterosaur moves, but not with speed, with certainty. One stride, a second, a lowering of the head. The beak opens, not wide but precise, like a pair of tweezers forged in a nightmare. Snatch. It's done. The baby dinosaur squeaks once, then vanishes into a throat lined with nothing but ambition. You grimace. And yet, it's hard not to admire the efficiency. This is how it was, for millions of years. The skies weren't ruled by thunder or flame. They were ruled by quiet, by patient watchers, by beaks that struck before shadows even touched the ground. You've seen crocodiles lunge. You've seen raptors chase, but this is different. This is surgical. Scientists still debate the full range of pterosaur diets. Some say they specialized fish eaters, crab pickers, squid hunters. Others argue for generalism, anything that fit in the mouth was fair game. But when it comes to the big boys like Quetzalcoatlus or Hatzegopteryx, most agree hatchlings were on the menu. Small prey, easy calories, high reward, low risk. From an evolutionary standpoint, it makes perfect sense. When you weigh over 200 kilograms and rely on wind to keep you airborne, every bite counts. That's the thing people forget. Giant predators don't just need to kill. They need to balance the books. Burn too many calories chasing one meal and the math breaks. You need dozens of small victories, not one glorious takedown. And while adult dinosaurs had armor, speed, or size, their babies, they had hope. And that's it. You take a deep breath. The air is humid, pollen heavy. Somewhere behind you, something chirps. You turn, but it's nothing. Just a dragonfly the size of your forearm. Welcome to the Cretaceous. You shift slightly and your foot slips. Mud. It squelches loudly. The pterosaur hears it. Its head snaps in your direction. You freeze. There's something deeply unsettling about being noticed by something that could kill you without trying. The eyes dark, calculating lock on for just a moment. Then it tilts its head. You're not prey, not moving, not edible, not important. It turns back around and walks away. Odd fact, some pterosaur skulls show signs of asymmetry, possibly related to hunting style. No one knows exactly why. One theory is that slight variations in skull shape allow different individuals to exploit different prey niches, kind of like how humans have favorite snacks. One might go for burrowing mammals, another might specialize in baby hadrosaurs. Everyone's got a flavor. You trail the creature at a safer distance, now moving through brush, with your body hunched low. You pass a patch of flowers, yes, flowers. Angiosperms were just starting to take over this world. Bright, colorful, full of nectar no one had quite figured out how to monetize yet. You think about the prey again. It's easy to feel bad for them. Tiny lives snuffed out in seconds. But this is balance, not cruelty. No one flies forever. Even the hunters have their limits. And just ahead, you see one. Not the one you've been following, a different pterosaur. Lying still, wings splayed, dead. You approach cautiously. The body is intact mostly. Bones exposed, skin desiccated into tight parchment. The skull has collapsed slightly under the weight of time. Even giants fall. But nearby in the dirt tracks, a story, a struggle maybe, or just bad timing. Maybe it starved, maybe it was old, maybe it tried to steal a baby from the wrong nest. Predators don't always win. You kneel beside it, careful not to touch. The wings are longer than you are tall, the body surprisingly compact. It's strange how small the body is compared to the wings. It's almost like the flight system was the priority. Everything else just followed. Scientists have puzzled over pterosaur anatomy for decades. Why such massive wings? Why such small torsos? Turns out it's all about leverage and control. The smaller the body, the easier to balance in the air. The wings don't just provide lift, they provide stability. Like a tightrope walker with a giant pole, except the pole is your arm, and the tightrope is the sky. You sit beside the skeleton for a moment. It's not morbid, it's beautiful. This thing ruled the skies once, watched the earth roll beneath its wings, stole meals, snatched hatchlings, glided above volcanoes, and now dust. But that's the deal, isn't it? Even the perfect hunter has to land sometime. You stand up slowly, brushing ancient dust from your hands. The dead pterosaur lies behind you, now half museum, half memory. Its story is over, but yours? You've still got miles to go. You walk through low brush, letting the silence stretch a bit. It's not the peaceful kind, not really. It's the kind of silence that hums full of watchful tension, like the whole world is holding its breath. And then you hear it. Whoosh. A sudden gust overhead. Not wind. Wings. You duck instinctively, heart hammering. Above you, a blur moves low, fast, silent. It doesn't land. Just surveys. Then another one. But these are smaller, quicker, darting shapes that don't glide like the big ones they move. Agile, zippy, wings tucked and opened like switchblades. They weave through the air with precision like fighter jets that skipped flight school and relied entirely on instinct. You step into a wide clearing and watch them dance. They're not soaring, they're hunting. Diving, turning, banking at sharp angles, sometimes just above the tree line, sometimes nearly scraping the ground. Whatever they're after, it's fast and apparently delicious. One darts into a patch of tall ferns and erupts against something dangling from its beak. A mammal, maybe. You can't tell. You don't get much time to look. You blink and it's already halfway across the clearing again. You're witnessing a different hunting style now. Not the tiptoe and snatch of Quetzalcoatlus. Not the shoreline scoop of fishers. These guys, they're the dive bombers, the velociraptors of the air. Scientists still debate which pterosaurs were capable of powered acrobatic flight. Most agree that the smaller species like Rhamphorhynchus or Anurognathus could do this kind of flying. They had shorter wingspans, more muscle control, and higher wing loading ratios, which made them less efficient gliders, but far more maneuverable. You watch one stall in midair, twist on a pin, and dive vertically again. It disappears into a bush and reemerges 2 seconds later with empty claws but high self-esteem. You laugh quietly. It's weird, isn't it? We usually think bigger is better when it comes to ancient predators. But here you are watching something the size of a crow absolutely terrorize the undergrowth. Odd fact, some of the smallest pterosaurs had elaborate head crests despite their size. These weren't just for display. Some may have helped with aerodynamics, acting like rudders. Others were probably just for show. Fashion matters, even in the Mesozoic. You lie down in the grass, now staring up at the canopy. The smaller flyers are still at it, chasing bugs and frogs, barely flapping, mostly just diving with intent. The sky above them is quiet. No Quetzalcoatlus, no giants. Different layers of the food chain, different rules. It makes you wonder, how did these different flyers coexist? Did they compete? Did they fight? Or did they just avoid each other like passive-aggressive roommates sharing the same evolutionary lease? Scientists think the skies were stratified like a multi-story building. Big pterosaurs patrolled high up, gliding, watching. Medium ones worked the coastlines and inland rivers. The smallest, they haunted forests and lakes, darting like angry shadows just above the treetops. No one wanted to burn calories fighting over the same slice of sky. Not when there was enough weird stuff crawling around below. You roll onto your side, trying to get a better view of one particularly daring little hunter. It's chasing something. Hard to tell what. A lizard insect, doesn't matter. The pursuit is wild. It climbs, hangs in the air for a second. Then boom, it crashes directly into a bush with the grace of a toddler on roller skates. Leaves fly. You flinch, but a second later it emerges again, this time triumphant. And with food. You grin. It's messy. It's clumsy. But it works. And maybe that's the point. Flight isn't about elegance all the time. It's about results. The air may have belonged to the giants, but the ground, the forest floor. The messy, bug-infested corners of the ancient world that was ruled by these guys. A pterosaur zips right above your head. You feel the gust, sharp, sudden, like a slap of air. The wings make a strange noise up close. Not a flap, more like the snapping of canvas. Tense, vibrating. And then it's gone again. You sit up and take stock of where you are. Still in the clearing. Still watching creatures that shouldn't exist, but did, and did it better than we ever imagined. Imagine trying to recreate these things in a lab, to study how they flew, how they hunted. We've tried, of course. Wind tunnel tests, models, animations. But something's always missing. Maybe it's the chaos, the randomness, the little moments where a gust shifts just right or a frog jumps left instead of right. Science can model airflow, but it can't model hunger, or luck, or dumb courage. You hear a rustle behind you, a bigger one. You turn. The big one is back. You've been watching the children's table this whole time, and now Dad has entered the restaurant. It steps into the clearing, the smaller pterosaurs scattering like pigeons at a train station. They know. They remember. This is not someone to share space with. The big one doesn't even look at them, just walks, calm, like a boss showing up late to a meeting already knowing everyone's scared. And just like that, the little ones vanish. Not because of violence, but because of presence. You crouch down low again, heart in your throat. Because if this one's hunting again, you're right where it's looking. You flatten yourself against the earth, trying to merge with the moss. If the ground could absorb you, now would be the time to ask politely. The big one, the sky tyrant, is only a dozen meters away. Its wings are mostly folded, but even tucked in. Like that, it looks like an ancient cloak made of muscle and leather. A leathery ghost with long legs and a surgical beak. It doesn't make a sound. It doesn't need to. Every step it takes is unnervingly precise heel toes, slight lean forward. The knees bend like a bird's, the neck arcs like a crane's. It's not just walking, it's calculating. You can practically hear the numbers crunching in its hollow skull. Then it stops. There just ahead of it is a rock, or at least that's what you thought it was, until the rock blinked. It's a turtle. A decent-sized one nestled half in a mud puddle, pretending not to exist. You both watch it for a beat. It doesn't move. Smart turtle. But the pterosaur moves. Slowly. It circles. You're close enough to see its nostrils flare, two narrow slits near the base of that absurdly long beak. There's no noise, no hiss, no growl, just breathing, measured, calm. Then suddenly snap, the beak plunges down. It doesn't stab, it doesn't slice, it lifts. In one smooth, horrifying motion, the pterosaur snatches, the turtle raises it high and throws its head back. The turtle vanishes halfway in, then gets stuck. You hear the dull clunk as shell meets gullet. Yeah, that's not going down easily. The pterosaur pauses, frustrated. Shakes its head once, twice. Then it slams the turtle against a rock. Crack. You flinch. Crack. The second hit does it. The shell splits just enough and the pterosaur gulps again. Gone. You lie in stunned silence. That wasn't a gentle, natural selection moment. That was pure force. Power applied exactly where needed. This wasn't an elegant glider anymore. This was a flying club with a skull. Scientists still debate whether large pterosaurs hunted armored prey often. Some say yes, especially the ones with big, blunted beaks and no teeth. Others think it was an occasional treat, like an evolutionary cheat day. What's clear is that this particular one knew what it was doing. And its beak. Let's talk about that thing. You've seen it from a distance, but now just meters away, you can see the design. It's not thin and needle-like like some fish eaters. It's broad, powerful, long enough to make a heron jealous, and toothless just bone. But that bone is a weapon. Researchers have speculated that some pterosaur beaks worked almost like nutcrackers, not in the chomping sense, no molars here, but in terms of leverage. That long skull gave it a massive advantage. Picture a crowbar with eyes. You take a step back, just a tiny one, but a twig snaps underfoot. The pterosaur turns its head toward you. Fast. You freeze. Again. But now you're looking straight into its eye. And it's expressive. That's the part no one really prepares you for. You expect cold, reptilian blankness. But what you get is calculation. A moment of curiosity. Not hunger, not yet, but definitely attention. Then it does something unexpected. It snorts. Just once. A short, disapproving puff from its beak holes, and turns away. You've been dismissed. It walks off wings, dragging just slightly in the grass behind it like a king's train. You exhale quietly. Odd fact, there's fossil evidence that some pterosaur beaks had keratin coverings, sort of like birds' beaks today. That would make them even stronger, and possibly sharper. So not just a skull weapon, more like a reinforced skull weapon. A tactical upgrade from nature's hardware store. You watch it disappear into the trees. One moment it's there, the next it's gone. That's the thing about the biggest hunters. When they're done, they just leave. No celebration. No roar. No ta-da. Just silence. You sit back down in the grass, trying to piece together what just happened. The turtle didn't stand a chance. And you survived again. But now you know something you didn't before. Pterosaurs weren't just flyers. They were crushers. And their beaks. Those were tools. Multi-purpose, devastating tools. perfect for baby dinosaurs, fish, mammals, and yes, even turtles. You lean back, listening to the wind now. In the distance, you hear another whoosh, but smaller. The little pterosaurs are returning. Their boss is gone, and the air is safe again. For now. One zips overhead, dragging a strand of moss like it's building a nest. Another hovers near a tree trunk, snatching insects midair. Life resumes. You lie back, fully staring at the canopy, the late afternoon sun filtering through fronds like green-stained glass. And you realize flight isn't just for freedom. It's for control, dominance, advantage. And when it's paired with a 2-meter beak that could crack a turtle like a pistachio, that's more than flight. That's strategy. The wind shifts. You feel it first on your cheek, a warm breeze sliding through the trees like a whisper. The kind that suggests something's coming. Not a storm, not rain. Something hungrier. You stand slowly, stretching sore knees. This place is starting to wear on you. Not just physically, but mentally. There's something disorienting about watching giants take to the skies and gulp down the innocent like popcorn. It makes your modern sense of scale feel broken. Up is down. Big eats small. Small runs, and no one is ever safe. You make your way toward a rocky slope, a sort of natural overlook that gives you a wide view of the plains below. It's quiet, almost too quiet. Then far off you spot it. Another pterosaur. Big. Definitely Quetzalcoatlus level. But something's different this time. It's not flying. It's running. Wait what you squint. The wings are partially open, yes, but not flapping. Just angled for balance. And the legs, long, powerful strides, each one absorbing impact with spring-loaded grace. You didn't know these things could run. Most people don't. And yet here it is, barreling across the flat plain like an airborne cheetah who forgot its wings at home. Scientists still debate this. Could the big ones really run? Some think yes, that their leg bones were strong enough, their hip joints flexible enough, and their muscles capable enough to make running, or at least brisk walking, totally viable. Others argue that they were waddlers, clumsy on land. But this scene, this animal sprinting like it means it, it's convincing. And now you see why. Ahead of it, something flees. A pack of small ornithopods, herbivores, maybe Hypsilophodon, all tail and panic. They zigzag, trying to outmaneuver a predator that in theory shouldn't be able to chase them. But theory has left the chat. The pterosaur lunges forward, wings still half unfurled, using them almost like counterweights as it weaves between rocks and shrubs. And then without warning, it stops. Hard. The ornithopods keep running, confused, scattering. And just as they slow to look back, launch. The pterosaur vaults skyward in one explosive motion, its launch powerful, practiced. Not from a standstill, from a sprint. 4 limbs push against the earth. Wings snap wide. Air catches like a parachute made of muscle. It's airborne again, and descending, straight down. One of the ornithopods doesn't react in time. It pauses, possibly from exhaustion, possibly from sheer existential despair. The shadow grows. You can guess the rest. Whoomp. The impact is muted, but the effect is brutal. The pterosaur lands on its prey, not with claws, not with fangs, but with weight. It pins. The beak drops. And just like that, one more small herbivore takes a one-way flight into the Cretaceous food chain. You stare, mouth slightly open. That wasn't elegant. That wasn't a glide or a dive. That was tactical. It used the chase not to catch its prey, but to funnel it. To push it into an open space. To force a mistake. It hunted like a land predator, which raises a question you weren't ready to ask. Were these pterosaurs really flying predators? Or were they terrestrial stalkers with wings as a backup plan? This is the academic debate that still burns. Some researchers argue that the largest pterosaurs barely flew at all, that they were primarily ground-based, like flight-capable giraffes, stalking, walking, ambushing, then taking to the sky when distance called for it. Others insist they were long-distance gliders who only landed when necessary. The truth, probably both, because nature doesn't do one-size-fits-all. And evolution loves a multitasker. You make your way down from the overlook, slowly giving the kill site a wide berth. The pterosaur is busy now, head-bobbing body still gulping meat like a vending machine that forgot to chew. You duck behind a boulder and sit. Quiet again. And here's where things get even stranger. Because the math doesn't add up. Why is something this big going after prey that small? You do some rough calculations in your head. A Quetzalcoatlus-sized creature would need tens of thousands of calories per day just to maintain flight muscles. A single ornithopod, even plump, is just a snack. It's like eating one fry and calling it dinner. So what gives turns out it's all about volume. These predators didn't hunt one thing per day. They hunted dozens, maybe hundreds. They didn't care about trophies. They cared about turnover, low effort, high frequency, like fast food, but with more screaming. Odd fact, pterosaurs had insanely fast digestion. Some studies suggest their guts were as efficient as modern birds, so they could eat constantly, small meals all day long, eat, fly, repeat, and when food was scarce, scavenge. You peer back at the scene. The pterosaur is done now. It licks its beak, no tongue, just a swipe of the head, and walks away like it's bored. No ceremony, no cleanup, just another meal. That's the thing you're starting to understand. These creatures weren't monsters. They were pragmatists. They didn't need to kill in dramatic ways. They needed results. Silent landings, strategic launches, gulp and go. Their hunting style wasn't about dominance. It was about efficiency. And somehow that makes them even scarier. Because monsters can be fought. But systems are unstoppable. You've barely caught your breath when the breeze shifts again, cooler now, carrying a salty tang. The forest opens up ahead, and you follow the scent. The trees thin out, sunlight flickers in between, and then suddenly, there it is. The sea. Not the calm blue kind you're used to seeing on postcards. This one's greener, wild, shallow along the edge and teeming with life. Waves slap against a muddy shoreline. Fish leap, occasionally chased by things beneath the surface you're very glad you can't see. And right there, standing ankle-deep in the surf, is another pterosaur. It's smaller than the giants you've been trailing, maybe 5 meters in wingspan, but it moves with a kind of swagger, like it owns this patch of shore. Its beak is longer and narrower, almost like chopsticks fused into a blade. Its eyes scan the water with unblinking focus. A fish jumps. Too far. The pterosaur doesn't move. Another one breaks the surface, closer this time. In a flash, the wings lift for balance, and the neck snaps downward. Splash. It lifts the fish like it weighs nothing. Gulp. Gone. You're watching a shoreline specialist in action. Scientists believe several pterosaur species lived like this, the Lasodromius pteranodon and others. These weren't open ocean flyers. They hunted the intertidal zones, cruising along coastlines, swooping low and swiping fish directly from the surface, like ancient seagulls on steroids. But the real drama that happens mid-air. Suddenly from the left, another pterosaur dives in from above. It's fast, almost too fast to see, and it's not fishing, it's stealing. The second one slams into the first with a thump that echoes across the beach. You hear wings collide. Screeches follow. For a moment, it looks like a cartoon fight cloud with limbs sticking out. Then, separation. The thief wins. It flies off with the fish flapping helplessly in its beak. The original hunter squawks, annoyed but uninjured, shakes off, returns to scanning the water like this sort of aerial mugging is just part of the job. Because it is. This is called kleptoparasitism, stealing food from another animal. And it's shockingly common in nature. Gulls do it, eagles do it, humans definitely do it. Ever had a roommate with no concept of fridge boundaries? Pterosaurs, oh, they perfected it. Odd fact, their long beaks, especially the toothless ones, were perfect, not just for catching prey, but for grabbing it out of someone else's mouth. Speed plus precision, Arctur's free lunch. You crouch by the dune watching as the first pterosaur resumes hunting totally unbothered. You wonder how often this happens. Probably a lot. The sky isn't just a hunting ground, it's a battlefield of economics. Energy in, energy out. Why catch your own fish if you can just take someone else's? It's not dishonorable. It's efficient. And efficiency is survival. You step carefully across the wet sand, leaving behind footprints that vanish almost instantly in the tide. Seaweed clings to your boot. Crabs scurry out of your way like clockwork toys. Then, on the next rise, you see it. 2 pterosaurs. Facing off. No fish between them. No prey. Just tension. One spreads its wings, not for flight, but display, a dominance gesture. The other hunches low head, twitching side to side. Then they charge. Not into the air, across the ground. Feet kicking up sand beaks, clacking wings, flapping not to fly, but to unbalance the other. It's a slap fight, but terrifying. At one point, one of them grabs the other's crest and yanks. You cringe. Scientists still debate what these interactions were really like. We don't have fossilized fight videos yet, but bone damage, beak scarring, and even deformed crests suggest that disputes weren't always verbal. Why fight over a fish when you can fight over who gets this entire patch of ocean? Eventually, the smaller one backs off, wings folded tight, and takes off with a hiss. The victor flares its crest, possibly in celebration, possibly to say, "Get wrecked," and returns to fishing. You exhale slowly. Even among sky lords, conflict resolution is messy. You walk on, hugging the coastline. A few more pterosaurs dot the shore. One waddles, one glides overhead. Another sleeps, wings curled like a bat head tucked beneath a shoulder. It looks almost peaceful. Until you remember what its beak did to that turtle. You pause near a tide pool. In the shallows, tiny prehistoric horseshoe crabs scuttle, and above them, the shadow of a wing looms again. You don't flinch this time. You're learning. You watch as the hunter lands again, but this time it doesn't grab a fish. It walks over to another pterosaur and simply waits. The other one catches something and drops it. The waiting one snatches it. Teamwork, maybe. Maybe it's a mate. Maybe it's a juvenile and parent. Maybe it's a pecking order situation. But it's clear now this isn't just solitary hunting. These creatures sometimes tolerated each other, maybe even cooperated. Another theory scientists discuss: did some pterosaurs feed in loose flocks, like pelicans do today? There's fossil evidence of mass pterosaur nesting sites, so it's not a stretch to think they might have hunted near each other. But social doesn't mean friendly. Social just means they shared space. You step back as the tide creeps in, wrapping around your toes with cold fingers. The sun dips lower. shadows stretch longer. And somewhere above you, hear the flap of a giant wingbeat. You glance up and freeze. Quetzalcoatlus. Again. This one's high, just a silhouette against the pink sky, but unmistakable. It's watching the coast. It doesn't need to fish. It's watching for an opportunity. And just as you turn to head back inland, you realize something chilling. That fish the thief stole earlier, it didn't keep it long. The big one got that too. Because in the air, even the thieves get robbed. You back away from the shoreline as twilight rolls in, soft golden at first, then bruised purple. The kind of light that makes shadows feel alive. The sea is behind you, now noisy and restless. Ahead, a tangle of trees reclaims the land. You step into it, and immediately the temperature drops. The air smells damp like moss bark and something deeper, more ancient. The kind of scent that doesn't just exist, but remembers things. Your feet sink slightly into the mulch as you move crunching layers of detritus left behind by hundreds of seasons. Up ahead, something waits. Not moving, not hunting, just lying there. You step closer slowly, and there it is, a carcass. Big, dinosaurian. A hadrosaur by the look of it. Herbivore, long-tailed duckbill skull. It's been dead a few days. The flies have clocked in. The smell punches you like bad news. And perched on the edge of it, a pterosaur. Not a hunter, a scavenger. Its beak is slick. Its face is calm. It stands ankle-deep in rot and doesn't seem the least bit bothered. No urgency, no panic, just casual snacking. You didn't think about this, did you? The idea that pterosaurs, those great noble gliders, might have been more vulture than falcon. But here it is, chewing on ribs like it's day-old brisket. Scientists have long speculated that many pterosaurs, especially the big ones, weren't just hunters. They were opportunists and scavenging. That's the oldest opportunity in the book. It makes perfect sense. Why spend hours flying, searching, chasing, launching, and risking injury when you can walk up to a corpse buffet, free protein? Minimal effort. Max return. Evolution isn't sentimental. It rewards strategy. And if that means eating what's already dead, then so be it. But you're not the only one watching. Behind a log, another pterosaur waits. This one's bigger. Crest scarred. Legs tense. The feeder knows it too. It chirps short, sharp, annoyed. A warning. The larger one approaches anyway, and then a brief but brutal conflict. No wings, no air, just beak strikes, jabbing, slapping, twisting. No elegance, no style, just raw mechanics. The smaller one retreats. No major injuries, but clearly outclassed. The winner, new king of the carcass, takes a slow, possessive bite. You step back behind a tree heart pounding. It's easy to forget how violent things get around meat. Odd fact, some fossil evidence shows that pterosaur beaks were more flexible than once believed, capable of limited sideways motion. Not chewing, but not locked rigid either, enough to tear and manipulate flesh, more like tongs than scissors, and the eyes still sharp. You swear the big one glances your way just once, not as a threat, more like you better not be next in line. You nod because yes, message received. You keep walking deeper into the woods, the scent of death slowly replaced by that of wet bark and silence. But the idea follows you. Pterosaurs weren't just predators. They were recyclers. In a world of constant death, someone had to clean up. But this brings you to a weird question. Did pterosaurs prefer fresh kills? Or were they specialized scavengers? Scientists still debate that one. The fossil record shows pterosaurs with stomach contents that include both fresh prey and decomposing tissue, which means they probably didn't care. Fresh or funky, if it could be swallowed, it was dinner. Your stomach turns slightly at the thought. But survival isn't picky. You pause beside a shallow stream. Water gurgles over flat stones, clear and cool. You kneel, cupping a handful, and catch your reflection, mud-smeared, wide-eyed, slightly traumatized. Then you see something in the water. A shape. You flinch, but it's not dangerous. Just another dead thing. Half sunken. Fish-like, but not a fish. Maybe a small marine reptile. Decaying. And above it a small pterosaur. Hanging upside down from a branch. Just watching. You stare at each other for a second. Then it drops, glides downward, and lands on the corpse like it was clocking in for a shift. Another scavenger. Only this one's smaller, more cautious. It pecks its soft tissue wings, half spread for balance like a dinner guest, trying not to slip off their chair. The beak works quickly, efficiently, and now you're wondering, how many pterosaurs made their living this way? How many never hunted at all? Evolution rewards shortcuts. And scavenging is the ultimate shortcut. No chase, no flight risk. Just a buffet with minimal resistance. Of course, there's danger too. You hear it before you see it. A growl. Low. Not avian. A rustle in the underbrush. Something's coming. You duck, pressing against a tree trunk. The little scavenger hears it too. It leaps up, flaps once, and vanishes into the trees. From the shadows, a predator slinks out, a land-bound one. You can't see it fully. Just a tail claws and intent. It moves to the corpse, and you realize scavenging is easy until something bigger wants the same meal. The pterosaur was smart to flee, and you do the same. You sprint upstream, breathing hard, ducking branches. Your heart pounds in your ears. Everything feels louder, your footsteps, your breath, the world. You don't stop until the growl fades, until the forest goes quiet again. And even then, you don't relax. Because now you know, in the Mesozoic world, even sky kings sometimes eat scraps. The night is coming fast now. In this world, darkness doesn't fall, it slams. 1 minute you can see the trees around you, the tangled roots, the mist swirling along the forest floor. The next black, full and complete. The kind that doesn't make room for doubt. You light a mental candle and keep moving. But you're not alone. Not anymore. You hear the flutter first, a low, rhythmic fwop, 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 but softer than the giants you've seen. This is something else. More controlled. More intimate. Then a shadow crosses the moonlight. Then another. You stop walking. There's a pterosaur circling above you. And another. And another. They're smaller than the coastal hunters. Their wings are shorter, broader. Built not for long-distance travel, but for maneuvering in tight spaces. Like forests. And their eyes, oh. Their eyes glow faintly when the light catches them. Oversized, round, a little too forward-facing. These ones aren't out for fish. They're hunting now. At night. This is something you didn't expect. Scientists still debate whether pterosaurs were diurnal active during the day, nocturnal, or cathemeral scattered activity at any hour. But some fossil skulls suggest massive optic lobes, suggesting keen vision in low light. You stay still beneath the trees. One of them lands. It doesn't crash or flap. It settles, like a whisper becoming form. This one has a short snout, wide mouth, and fur-like fuzz over its chest and neck. It's only the size of a raven, maybe a bit bigger. It tilts its head, listening. Then it clicks. A short, sharp burst of sound, like sonar. Wait, did it just echolocate? That's still a controversial theory. No confirmed fossil evidence of sonar organs. But given how some modern birds and even shrews use echolocation in dim environments, some paleontologists speculate whether certain pterosaurs could too, especially the smaller insectivorous ones. This one creeps forward. You hold your breath. Then you see what it's after. A moth. A huge one, wings like silk fluttering against a tree trunk. It flaps once, twice, and the pterosaur pounces. The moth is gone. The pterosaur gulps it down with a happy twitch of its head and flies off again without a sound. You exhale. This was supposed to be a story about massive flying dinosaurs scooping up prey in broad daylight. But this is a stealth operation, a whole different hunting method. One built for silence. You sit on a mossy stone, watching as more of them dance through the trees. It's like a ghost ballet. Their wings make almost no noise, but their silhouettes flit across the gaps in the leaves, like stories you only half remember. It makes sense, though. Night flying offers safety, fewer predators, cooler air, less competition. Odd fact, modern birds like the oilbird and some swifts are active almost entirely in darkness using echolocation and huge retinas to navigate. If they can do it, maybe pterosaurs did too, or something like it. You start to notice patterns. They don't fly in wide circles like the big gliders. These ones zigzag, dart, pause, mid-air, almost hover. It's almost bat-like. And yes, while pterosaurs and bats aren't related, their nighttime niches may have overlapped, which raises the question, what happened when pterosaurs and early bats did overlap? Did one outcompete the other? Some paleontologists think bats only flourished after pterosaurs vanished, that the sky was simply too crowded before the mass extinction. After the KPG event 66 million years ago, the pterosaurs were gone, and the night sky reopened for business. But right now, in this part of the world, the night belongs to the pterosaurs. You keep walking slower now. The forest is alive with wings, not terrifying flaps, just fluttered intent. You hear clicks, you hear chirps, you hear air being shaped. And here's the most bizarre part. You don't feel scared. Not anymore. These hunters aren't watching you. They're among you. Ghostly co-inhabitants of the under-canopy world. They float from perch to perch, scooping moths, grabbing dragonflies mid-air, whispering to the dark with each wing beat. You reach a glade lit only by moonlight. The mist has pooled here. A shallow fog floats around your ankles. A group of small pterosaurs gathers at the edge of a tree. 5 or 6 of them. Their heads bob, their beaks tap against the bark. You realize they're not just hunting, they're communicating. Postures shift. Wings flick open, then closed. One flaps, the others crouch. You're witnessing something close to coordination. Scientists still debate whether small pterosaurs hunted cooperatively. Some argue yes, especially in dense forests where prey is quick and maneuverable. Others say no fossil evidence for group hunting is sparse. But your eyes are telling you something fossil beds can't. This is choreography. A leaf falls from above. One of the pterosaurs snatches it, realizes it's not edible, drops it, and gives the most exaggerated huff you've ever seen a prehistoric creature express. You snort quietly. Even in deep time, disappointment is universal. You move again, carefully. The pterosaurs take no notice, and you realize something else. Hunting is not always violent. Sometimes it's quiet, patient, deliberate, a click, a pause, a flutter through the dark. These night stalkers weren't brutes. They were precision tools in a world that never really slept. By now, the darkness has softened into something comfortable. The sky above is full of stars, familiar but skewed. Ancient constellations drawn by a world not meant for you. Orion hasn't been born yet. The moon is closer, brighter, almost smug about it. The forest has thinned again, and you find yourself in a wide field. Mist pools across it, glowing faintly silver. A quiet place. Too quiet. You step carefully, watching your breath drift ahead of you like smoke. And then you hear it, the soft crunch of something heavy stepping on moss. You freeze. It's coming from your left. Another step, and then you see it. Not a predator this time. A nesting site. You duck behind a log and peer through the foliage. There, in a shallow depression in the ground, is a cluster of eggs. Dozens arranged in a loose spiral. Some intact, some cracked. All large, about the size of grapefruits. And beside them, an adult pterosaur. Its lying half-curled wings wrapped around the clutch like a living tarp. Its chest rises and falls slowly, and its eyes are closed. Asleep. You didn't expect this. You never thought of the parenting side of these creatures. Hunters, sure. Gliders, obviously. But nurturers, apparently, yes. At least, for now. Scientists still argue over how much parental care pterosaurs gave. Some say none at all, that babies hatched ready to fly miniature versions of adults that scurried off seconds after hatching like wind-up toys. Others suggest there was a brief period of protection, especially in colonies where competition was fierce and tiny pterosaurs would have made excellent snacks. You creep a little closer. You want to see the eggs. But just as you lean forward, one of them moves. Not a twitch, a wobble, and then crack. A fissure splits the surface. You gasp without meaning to. Inside, something shifts. The shell buckles outward. A small wing pushes through webbed and damp. Then a second, then the head. It's absurdly cute in a bizarre, leathery kind of way. Big eyes, long beak. A fluff of fuzz on its crest. No squawking, just blinking, just being. It lifts itself free, shivering, and looks around. And then it spreads its wings. You think no way. But yes, it launches. Wobbly, shaky, but airborne, straight from the egg into the sky. Just like that. You stare in disbelief. It wasn't even 10 seconds old. But here's the thing, pterosaur babies called flaplings by paleontologists might have been capable of flight immediately. Their bone structure, wing membranes, and muscle development suggest a level of readiness that would make modern birds blush. No long nesting period. No feeding in shifts. Just hatch flap and hope you don't immediately get eaten. Odd fact, some flaplings had stronger bone density in their wing joints than adults. Why possibly to endure the chaotic launch phase of their short, independent lives? You watch as the newborn circles the clearing, once sloppy but determined, and lands on a low branch. It flaps awkwardly, preens, falls off the branch. Tries again. It's ridiculous. It's glorious. And then you hear the rustle again. From behind the log. You turn. Another one's watching. Not a pterosaur, something else. Eyes glint in the dark. You can't make out its shape, but it's quadrupedal, low to the ground, and definitely carnivorous. It saw the hatchling too. It steps forward. But before you can even breathe, slam. The adult pterosaur is up, wings spread wide, mouth open in a silent screech. Its wings make no noise, but the effect is deafening. The predator freezes and runs. You sit back in stunned awe. That wasn't a tired scavenger or sleepy glider. That was a parent, a protector, and you realize something else. This moment, this absurd, emotional, midnight burst of defense, it's not rare or weird. It's evolution. Pterosaurs weren't just killing machines. They were mothers, fathers, guardians, and now the adult circles above the clearing wings stretched wide, scanning. The hatchling tries to follow, gliding in crooked arcs like a paper plane caught in a dream. You lie back in the grass and watch the pair disappear into the mist together. You don't know how long they'll survive, but for now they're airborne, and that's enough. You wake up before dawn, unsure whether you ever actually slept. The grass beneath you is damp with dew, and your joints complain as you sit up, but the sky, oh, the sky is just beginning to stir. Pale lavender bleeds into dusty orange along the horizon, and the stars are fading like shy children ducking behind clouds. You stretch and begin walking. There's something in the air more than morning. You feel it in your skin. A hush, a shift, like something out there has stopped moving. You step over old footprints, some yours, some not, and then you hear it, nothing. No wing beats, no chirps, no whistles, no insect hum. It's like the world hit pause. And then just as your breath catches a sound, splits the silence. Not a screech, not a growl. Something worse, something fast. A whoosh followed by an abrupt crack above the treetops. You run toward the sound. Instinct, stupidity, either way, your legs are already moving. You break through the brush into a wide clearing, just in time to see it, two pterosaurs. Mid-air collision, not a fight, not even a chase, just bad timing. The smaller one tumbles, spinning a broken wing, fluttering uselessly. It hits the ground hard. You flinch. The larger one wobbles, steadies, climbs again into the air, and vanishes. You inch closer to the crash site. The downed pterosaur may be a nyctosaurus, judging by the weird head crest that looks like an ancient tuning fork is breathing. Shallow, eyes fluttering. You've watched these creatures hunt, eat, steal, and protect. But you haven't seen them fall. Until now. There's something tragic about it. These were rulers of the sky. They lived and died in air. But the air doesn't play favorites. One wrong angle, one unexpected gust, and gravity wins. Scientists believe pterosaur bones, despite being hollow and light, were structurally sound, but they had limits. Break a wing mid-flight, you don't glide to safety, you plummet. Odd fact, some fossil beds contain dozens of pterosaur skeletons in close proximity. Mass death events. Maybe storms. Maybe mating swarms gone wrong. Or maybe just too many wings in too little airspace. You kneel beside the fallen creature. It's not a monster now. Just muscle and memory lying still in the grass. Its eyes blink once, slowly. Its chest rises, then stills. You sit back. The silence returns, and you start to think. For all their power, for all their mastery of the sky, these creatures were fragile. Flight is a gamble. Every takeoff is a risk. Every landing a hope. And mid-air, there's no forgiveness. You walk away quietly, leaving the body behind. You climb a ridge, the sunlight now spilling across the treetops, igniting the world with golden fire. And there, high above, you see them. Wings. Dozens. A whole spiral of pterosaurs rising on warm currents, their silhouettes forming temporary constellations. You recognize some shapes. Others are new. Big, small, crested, beakless, soaring, flapping, diving. All of them flying. And suddenly the sky doesn't feel empty anymore. It feels full, alive, and dangerous. Because every one of those silhouettes is hunting. Not necessarily you, but definitely something. You sit down on the ridge and let the wind brush your hair back, the warmth soaking into your skin. And for a moment, you understand why they did it. Why they risked everything to be up there. Because down here, it's all roots and mud and predators with teeth. But up there, there's space. There's height. There's vision. Even if it's brief, even if you fall, you flew. The wind carries you forward now, not literally, but in the way momentum does when a story refuses to let you go. The ridge falls away behind you, and you follow a narrow trail that weaves along the edge of a cliff. To your left, forest canopy stretching into forever. To your right, a steep drop into mist, the bottom hidden by morning haze. You're walking a line just like they did. And then you hear it. Not a flap, not a rustle. Voices, not human, but familiar. A cacophony of croaks, whistles, hoots, and low rumbling calls. You crest a rise duck beneath a leaning palm, and there it is, a colony. Hundreds, no thousands of pterosaurs. Nestled in a wide plateau, cratered with shallow nests, each ringed with egg clusters. Adults stand guard, some perched on rocks, some dozing with one eye open, some preening their wings with slow, meditative focus. You freeze. This isn't a hunting ground. This is a city in the sky, or rather on a cliff above the world. Somewhere safe from predators, protected by altitude, wind, and sheer numbers. You step back behind a curtain of ferns, careful not to disturb the moment. Scientists have always dreamed of this, an intact pterosaur colony, complete with hatchlings, juveniles, adults, and the social chaos of communal life. And while fossilized nesting sites have given us clues, like the ones found in Argentina or China, they never showed it alive. Until now. You watch a juvenile flap ungracefully across the clearing trip over a sibling and collapse in a tangle of fuzzy limbs. The adult nearby scolds it with a throat rumble and nudges it back toward the nest. It's oddly adorable. Another pair of adults circle above the colony, calling out as if announcing their arrival from a foraging trip. One carries something limp in its beak, maybe a lizard, maybe leftovers. It drops it beside a chick who pounces with the enthusiasm of a toddler given their first cake. So yes, these Sky Lords had a social life, but not all was peaceful. A skirmish breaks out near the edge of the colony. Two adults, same species, different crests, lock eyes, flare wings, and begin a display. Neck feathers puffed, beaks clapping. One stomps in place like an angry turkey. The other responds with a hiss and a forward lunge. They don't fly. They fight. But not fatally. Eventually, the more submissive of the two backs down, wings lowered, gaze averted. The dominant one lifts its head and turns away. Victory doesn't always need blood. Scientists still debate the extent of pterosaur social behavior. Did they nest in organized colonies like seabirds? Did they have territories? Was there a hierarchy? No one's sure. But what you're seeing here, that's structure. Not civilization, not language, but rules. Odd fact, some fossilized pterosaur embryos have teeth even when the adults of that species are toothless. It's still unclear why. Maybe juvenile diets were different. Maybe their skulls changed drastically after hatching. Nature often plays tricks like that, giving a child something only to take it away during adolescence. You watch as a group of juveniles forms a loose circle and begins flapping awkwardly in place. A practice session. Their takeoffs are chaotic, half jumping, half flailing, but one by one they get airborne, wobbling into short loops before crash landing nearby. No one helps them. No one needs to. They learn. They fall. They flap again. You begin to notice something else: species diversity. There's more than one kind of pterosaur here. A larger crested species shares nesting space with a smaller, stockier one. They don't seem to mix nests, but they tolerate each other. Ecosystem stacking. Just like seabird colonies today turns gulls and albatrosses all in one messy, noisy, cliffside neighborhood. And what's the benefit? Protection. One lone flyer is vulnerable, a group that's a fortress with wings. You climb a bit higher for a better view. From above, the colony looks like a living mosaic. Wings flare, heads bob, chicks stumble, adults glide in and out like arrows returning to quivers. And yet for all this noise, there's harmony. Each movement has purpose. Every fight ends quickly. Every chick gets fed. You sit there for a long time, watching, thinking. This wasn't the story you expected to see. You came looking for monsters. Instead, you found community, a rough, screeching, wing-slapping version of it, sure. But still, this is what survival looks like when shared. And then one more surprise. A new shadow falls across the colony. A massive one. A Quetzalcoatlus glides in from the east. You brace for chaos. You expect panic. You imagine a predator showing up to ruin the family picnic. But nothing happens. It lands. Right near the outer rim of the colony. Chicks don't scream. Adults don't scatter. It belongs. You blink. Could it be a parent, a member? Even the kings of the sky were part of something larger. Not just hunters, not just loners, but participants in the airborne civilization of their time. The colony is stirring now, warmed by the rising sun. Wings stretch in all directions, like petals unfolding in slow, yawning unison. Some flap, gently drying off dew. Others unfurl to their full, astonishing length and catch the breeze like sails preparing for a long voyage. You're still perched quietly above, nestled into the crook of a rock, watching the organized chaos below. There's a rhythm to it, a living pulse. Preen flap feed. Preen flap snap, an occasional squabble. Then back to normal. And just when you think the morning will pass uneventfully, a chirp. Tiny. Raspy. You scan the colony. One of the nests off to the side near a scraggly bush has a chick teetering near the edge. Its wings are half-formed, still translucent at the edges like damp parchment. Its legs are unsteady, but its eyes, those are sharp. It's ready, or thinks it is. You inch forward, breath caught. The chick stares out toward the open sky, spreads its arms, and jumps. For a moment, you believe in miracles. It flies. Wobbly, uneven, barely in control, but it lifts. The wind catches its wings, lifts its tiny body above the edge of the colony. A few adults glance up, but don't interfere. There's no hovering parent, no helicopter beak, just freedom. And then a shadow. Not a pterosaur, something else. You spot it before the chick does. A dromaeosaur, a feathered ground-based predator slipping through the scrub like a shark through seagrass. It doesn't look up. It's watching the edges where chicks land where they stumble. It knows. It waits. You shift in place, heart hammering. You want to scream to warn, but all you can do is watch. The chick circles. Its descent is messy. Its wings aren't strong enough yet for a proper landing. It spirals down, too far from the core of the colony. It touches down on a flat patch of sand. The dromaeosaur moves, low, fast, silent, but not unnoticed, because in that same moment a massive thump hits the ground. An adult pterosaur. Not the chick's parent. Not a relative. Just present. It lands between the predator and the chick like a fallen curtain of muscle and fury. Wings flare wide, crest held high, beak open in silent threat. The predator skids to a halt. For a heartbeat, no one moves. Then the dromaeosaur decides it's not worth it. It melts back into the foliage. The adult pterosaur doesn't follow. It simply turns and nudges the chick gently with its beak. The tiny thing chirps again, hops forward, and takes to the sky once more, flapping furiously, like it knows now what the wind is for. You lean back, stunned. That wasn't parental instinct. That was something else. Maybe a reflex, maybe a social rule, maybe solidarity. Scientists still debate how intelligent pterosaurs were. Their brain-to-body ratio wasn't spectacular by mammalian standards, but their cerebellum responsible for flight control was well developed. Did that extend to social memory, protection of non-offspring? We don't know, but what you saw felt intentional. Odd fact: fossil evidence shows that pterosaur eggs were soft-shelled like those of modern reptiles, easily crushed, which may explain the need for protected, elevated nesting grounds. These creatures weren't just building homes, they were defending vulnerabilities. You watch the adult take off again. It launches in 2 beats, 1 jump, 1 wing snap, and disappears into the morning. Above you now, the air is alive with flaplings. They're everywhere, testing thermals, adjusting their bodies, mid-air, crash landing into shrubs, picking themselves up again. No one helps. No one scolds. They just try. And you realize in this world, the ability to fly isn't a gift. It's a necessity. There's no time for doubt. No warm-up phase. If you want to eat, escape, exist, you fly. You flap, you fall, you flap again. You notice another interesting thing. Each chick seems to fly a little differently. Some favor longer glides. Some hop between low branches. Some barely leave the ground, but practice with religious dedication. It's not uniform, which means flight, this one sacred behavior, isn't hardwired completely. It's learned, or at least refined. No flight school, no training montages, just 1,000 trials and errors written in muscle and instinct. You think about all the ways these creatures have hunted by soaring, stalking, scooping, stealing, scavenging. Now you see how they start. Messy, uncertain, driven by necessity. This is the sky's version of walking. And failure here? It's not embarrassing. It's deadly. So they figure it out fast. The sun climbs higher. The colony begins to thin. Adults rise in spirals heading to feeding grounds. Flaplings join them in stages, some confidently, others more hesitantly. You stay until the air itself feels thinner from their absence. And only then do you stand stretch and begin to descend. There's still more to see, but part of you stays behind. Back at that moment when the sky filled with clumsy first flights, when instinct met wind, and something ancient took shape. You descend from the cliffside slowly, boots finding uncertain purchase on crumbling stone and packed earth. The colony now behind you buzzes faintly with distant wing beats and the occasional scolding squawk. But even that begins to fade as you enter the trees once more. The light here is golden green. Ferns curl along the forest floor and sun shafts fall through gaps in the canopy like ancient spotlights. You pass a log so large it could double as a subway car. Something skitters across it. You don't stop to look. You're thinking about the sky and what's beneath it. Because despite all their majesty, all their mastery of air, pterosaurs still had to come down. And every time they did, they risked everything. Your mind replays that earlier moment, the chick landing too far from the nest, the predator closing in, the adult stepping between them. It was noble, yes, but it was also desperate. Because the ground is not their world. Not really. You notice it more now. The sounds, the subtle warning signs. The forest feels different from earlier in your journey. Less alive. More watched. Then you hear it. A rush of leaves, a thud, and a sharp snap like jaws closing just slightly too late. You crouch instinctively behind a thick palm, just in time to see a pterosaur bolt out of the foliage. It's a medium-sized one, restless, stocky, with wings tight against its sides. Not in flight, running, and fast. Behind it, something big. You only catch a blur of motion muscle claws, a flash of sharp teeth. A large terrestrial predator. Not a T-Rex, smaller, faster. Maybe Dromaeosaurus. Maybe something worse. The pterosaur tries to launch. It can't. The undergrowth is too dense. No room to spread its wings. No space to vault. It's trapped. The predator lunges, jaws wide. But at the last second, the pterosaur turns and fights back. It jabs with its beak, not a peck, a stab. Precision. The predator recoils, momentarily confused. Another jab, then a wing slap. More bone than muscle, but the momentum stuns. The predator backs off, snarls, but doesn't commit. Not worth it. And just like that, it vanishes into the ferns. The pterosaur stands, chest heaving, neck extended. Its wings flick open, and this time it gets clear. It leaps, pushes off the forest floor with all four limbs, and bursts through a gap in the canopy like a champagne cork. Gone. You exhale slowly, because you've seen it now firsthand, the price of gravity. Scientists have long debated how vulnerable large pterosaurs were on land. Their anatomy suggests they could walk, run even, but it wasn't their strength. They were flyers first. The ground was compromise. That's why takeoff strategy was so crucial. Unlike birds, which usually launch from two legs, pterosaurs used all four limbs. They needed space, a clear runway, and in a cluttered forest with branches and brush that was a death trap. You step into the clearing where the fight happened. There's blood on a leaf, not much, just a drop. The dirt's scuffed. A few feathers, no, not feathers. Pycnofibers, the pterosaur's fuzz. Odd fact, some paleontologists suggest pycnofibers weren't just for insulation. They may have helped with camouflage, broken up the creature's silhouette, allowed it to hide when hiding was the only option. But it doesn't always work. You keep moving through the trees, slower now, more deliberate. Every vine looks like a claw. Every rustle makes your muscles tense. Because you understand it now. Even apex predators have predators. Flight is power. Yes, but it's also exposure. When you're in the sky, you're free. But the second you land, you're just meat with wings. You pass a dry riverbed, just stones and twisted roots. And there in the middle, you see another body. Pterosaur, dead, wings broken, neck bent. But there are no signs of attack. You kneel, puzzled. No blood, no bite marks. Just a crash. You look up. The canopy here is denser. Almost no sky. Maybe the flyer didn't see it. Or maybe it misjudged a wind shear. Maybe it simply clipped a branch during descent and fell. Even the best pilots crash, especially in unfamiliar territory. Scientists still debate the role of weather in pterosaur mortality. Storms, wind, shifts, thermals, they all mattered. A bad day in the air didn't mean turbulence. It meant extinction. You stand again and back away from the corpse. Nothing you can do. But something else is watching. You hear the slow crunch of dry leaves, and then a new sound. Wing beats, not overhead. From the forest floor, you turn and see something incredible. A pterosaur launching from beneath the canopy. Not running, climbing, it uses a tree trunk like a ramp, scrambling upward with its claws, wings half open. Then it pushes off from a branch, curls midair, spreads wide and flies, straight up, through a gap in the leaves. Gone. You smile, because that was adaptation. The ground is deadly, yes, but not final. You begin to realize surviving as a pterosaur didn't just mean being strong in the air. It meant being clever on land, knowing when to walk, when to wait, when to fight, and when to fly. You take a deep breath. The forest breathes with you, not as a threat, but as a reminder. Up there, you're king. Down here, you're just trying to make it to morning. You keep moving, but now with a strange kind of reverence. This isn't just a walk through ancient Earth anymore. It's a pilgrimage through a forgotten sky, the memories of flight etched into trees, bones, shadows, and wind. The forest thins, and before you know it, you're back at the shoreline. The tide is lower now, peeling away from the sand in long, lazy strokes. Pools glisten where water once stood, and gull-like pterosaur cries echo over the flats. The beach smells like salt mud and something faintly metallic blood, maybe, or extinction arriving early. You turn toward the horizon, and there you see it. High above the sea, dancing on a late afternoon thermal, 2 Quetzalcoatlus. They circle in wide, lazy spirals. You sit down in the sand to watch. You've come to know these creatures. Their hunting styles, their parenting quirks, their social chaos, and their many brushes with death. And now you're seeing them in their purest form. Flight. No chase. No panic. No kill. Just 2 giants riding invisible staircases into the upper sky. But your peace doesn't last. Because suddenly the spiral breaks. One tilts, slips downward. You squint. It's not falling. It's turning, angling. You follow its gaze, and then you see it. A third pterosaur, sickly, slower, wings flapping erratically, trying to keep up, but clearly failing. You hold your breath, because this isn't a greeting. It's a challenge. The healthy Quetzalcoatlus pulls closer, wings taut, glide angle steep. It closes the distance fast, like a shark sniffing weakness in the water. The sick one tries to veer off. Too late. The aggressor clips its wing just barely, a nudge. But in the air, a nudge is violence. The weak pterosaur spirals, wings flailing balance, lost, and falls. Not a gentle drop, a plummet. You follow it with your eyes as it crashes behind a dune with a sound like a snapped piano string. You rush toward it. When you crest the hill, your stomach sinks. It's alive, but broken. One wing is twisted beneath its body. Its beak lies crooked, barely moving. Blood dark and thick seeps into the sand. It doesn't cry. It just breathes shallow and slow. You kneel beside it. There's nothing to be done. No ancient veterinarian, no redemption arc. Just the quiet fading of a ruler unseated. Because even up there among the clouds where gravity feels like a rumor, the strong still push the weak down. Scientists have long debated whether large pterosaurs were territorial in the sky. Could they recognize weakness, compete mid-flight? Fossilized bones with signs of mid-air fractures suggest the possibility. And what you just saw, it wasn't an accident. It was survival. Odd fact, in some pterosaur species, the air sacs used to lighten the skeleton also extended into the bones of the wing. If punctured, the creature might lose the ability to fly entirely. One strike, one crack, and the sky becomes a coffin. You reach out gently, placing your hand on the sand beside the dying creature. Its eye flicks toward you. There's no understanding, no recognition, just instinct. And then, stillness. You sit with it a while until the wind shifts and the tide comes in and the salt air pushes you to your feet. Above, the remaining 2 pterosaurs are long gone. Maybe they'll join another spiral. Maybe they'll claim a new patch of air. But you walk away. Knowing now that the sky isn't peaceful. It's earned. And sometimes it's taken. You make your way up the dunes again, feet heavy, eyes raw. The light begins to fade. The sun, a dull coin on the horizon, bleeds gold into the water. And for a moment, the whole world holds its breath. You look up. A single pterosaur glides overhead, wings stretched, silhouette, sharp tail trailing behind like punctuation. No chase, no kill. Just one more flight before the dark. And you think quietly, that's all any of them ever wanted. One more glide. One more day above it all.